Okay, this is Jim Bish with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is March 8th, 2023, and I am conducting an interview with George William Walker, Bill Walker, in Sun City West, Arizona. Bill, could you give me your full name and where you were born?
George William Walker. I was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I believe. Yeah. I think it was Borges Hospital.
Okay. And did you grow up in Michigan then? Tell me about where you went to school, and did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
Where at?
In Kalamazoo.
In Kalamazoo?
Kalamazoo Central High.
Okay. And what year was that you graduated from high school?
Well, let's see. The war started in 41. So it must have been right around then, yeah.
So you were in high school when World War II broke out.
Yep.
What do you remember about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yes. I mean, of course, that was all the news. And you couldn't believe what was happening.
So did you know right away that was going to change your life? What you were going to be doing shortly?
Probably, hey, subconsciously I probably realized it would. Because, like I said, my dad was a third-generation dairy farmer. And summers I would work for him on the farm. And therefore, I was exempt from being drafted. Mm-hmm. So in order to get into the Air Force, I had to get my dad to sign, because at that time, 18, you were still, not an adult. So anyway, I remember so well, he said, all right, he said, if you want to get your head blown out, I'll sign. And I always remember that because he was so adamant, because I could have stayed right there on the farm and worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was the best decision I ever made. It could have been tragic, but turned out good.
Yeah. Did your dad or your grandfather serve in World War I at all? Or anybody in your family that you know of?
No, my dad was exempt because he worked on a farm. I can't think of any. I had uncles that were in the service.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you were there a lot of high school boys that you were friends with that started joining the military at that time?
My good buddy Gaylord Woodard, who was a real good friend of mine, and he went into the Marines. And a couple of the other guys from high school I knew went in the service.
Mm-hmm. So, did you enlist?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about that? Where did you enlist to? Or where did you go to get into the service?
I think the office there in Kalamazoo, as I remember, just went and signed up, and then I was put on the reserve. They had to wait because there was such a waiting list for the program, the flight program. And that's what I signed up for, to become a pilot.
So you signed up for the Army Air Corps?
Yes.
And so they put you on a waiting list?
Yeah, finally they called and said where to go, and I reported for duty.
Where was that at that you reported for duty at? Do you remember?
Well, I'm trying to think. The first place, I think, was Shepherd Field in Texas. Mm-hmm. And we had to go through that basic training thing, which was a lot of malarkey. And I remember going on the marches, and they go on a long, long march, and it was hot weather, and some of the guys would drop out and faint. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what the hell? This is nothing, this is simple compared to dairy farming.
Yeah, a lot of kids probably weren't in good a shape as you were.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at the time, but it didn't bother me.
Yeah. Do you remember what year that was that you went in, did your basic training?
Well, the war started in December 7th, 41. And so December of 42, I guess I would have been eligible. I'd been old enough, see. I had to wait till I was 18 to get it.
So it was probably in 43 then, is when you went in?
Yeah.
Do you remember if it was in the fall or the summer? Obviously it was pretty hot, so it must have been towards summer.
Yeah, it seems, what's a I want to say May,
Okay.
because I know Shepherd Field in Texas, it's just hot as hell.
Do you remember anything beyond a lot of the other recruits feigning? Was there anything that you liked in basic training or disliked?
Oh, I don't know, like I say, coming off the farm, it seemed like it's a pretty simple deal, but it's just a lot of crap you had to put up with. And I think I enjoyed the rifle range, because I had a gun as soon as I was old enough, and
Yeah.
I got real good. Matter of fact, in basic training, you had to qualify. And the sergeant in charge, he says, "Oh, why don't you come back and shoot some more, because if you just got a couple more points, you'd be a sharpshooter." I looked at the sergeant. I didn't come into the Army to be a sharpshooter. I came in to learn to fly. But that's how good I was, because I did a lot of target practice.
Did you hunt much too? I'm assuming you did. I'm assuming you
Well,
hunted a
I
little bit on the
didn't
farm.
particularly care to shoot animals, and my dad encouraged me to go squirrel hunting one time, because I just did target
Yeah.
practice. So I went out in the woods, and pow, there's one. Pow, there's another one. First, and then the third one I had to shoot twice. I didn't kill him in the first shot.
Yeah.
So I dragged those back to the house, and we had squirrel for dinner.
Those were the days. So after Shepherd Airfield, where did they send
They
you?
sent me to Texas Tech as the college,
So you were in Lubbock.
and what they did, it was a holding tank waiting for the opening of the flight training program. So I spent, I think about 3 months there going to, they had really college courses, and then taught military stuff too. You had to stand guard, and pretend. They gave you wooden rifles to
Yeah.
guard, that sort of thing.
Did they give you any aviation instruction or aircraft instruction there? Do you know?
It seems to me that we got a few hours in like a Piper Cub or something, just a minimal amount.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you went on to, once there was an opening, went into primary training. Flew Ryan, PT-22s.
Okay. So from there you got put into your command. And where did you go from there? From Texas Tech.
Well, Texas Tech, and then we went to the primary school.
And where was that
And
at?
that was, where the hell was that?
Was it still in Texas?
Oh, it was in, near Sacramento, California.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you-
Ryan PT-22s we flew. It's an open cockpit, low wing monoplane. The story that comes to me now, I was just, getting instructed. They hired civilian instructors, and because most of the men were in the service. So anyway, this guy, we had a hell of a rainstorm up near Pasadena there, and we were practicing at a dirt field out in the country, and he wanted to show me about soft field landings. And of course, we come in and roll in that muddy ground and take off and go around again. And he kept going into it deeper and deeper. I'm thinking, I don't know about this asshole, because, I grew up on a dairy farm, and, the tractor really had to work hard to pull the truck through the mud. And sure enough, we got out in the wetter dirt, the damn thing went up on its nose. And it sat there like that. I hope it goes back down, but it didn't. It went over. So the instructor was in front, which put him closer to the ground. I was in the back seat, so I could skinny out. And I got under the back of the airplane and lifted it up enough so he could get out. And I thought it serves that dumb guy right for being so stupid. But anyway, they fired him.
Yeah. It sounds the way. So that was in a P-22?
PT-22. I don't know why.
And so that's what you were getting trained in as a pilot.
Yeah.
At that point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how long you were at Sacramento?
Well,
was it quite a while?
This is when Sacramento was. It was near there.
Okay.
Then we went to basic training. They called it basic, and that was a PT. What the hell? PT-13, I guess. It was a bigger airplane, bigger engine, and faster and so forth, and more difficult to fly.
Was that in California too?
No, that was in Arizona. It was Marana. It's not a museum out here, but Marana was where we were training.
Is that in Mesa?
Yes.
And that's where you did training on the PT-13s?
On the BT-13. It was basic training.
Okay.
Basic trainer 13. Then I went to Williams Air Force Base, which is now Mesa.
Mm-hmm.
And that was advanced. And we flew AT-6s, which was, close to a fighter plane. Big engine and much more maneuverable, really a good airplane. And the story there was I was doing real well, and it was, however, they were training British pilots, and they gave them priority. So I was late getting going in advanced, and I could say I was just a couple of weeks from graduating, and I got a head cold. And instead of going on sick call, which I should have done, I flew. And when I got up a little altitude, I couldn't hear. And the pilot, knocked me down. And instead of going to sick call, which, I went back again, and the same thing happened. So they washed me out. Probably saved my life because, that was early in the war. I was 2 weeks from graduating. We'd go to fighter planes, and then I'd be over in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the other story is interesting. W.K. Kellogg Company?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My dad, I think during the Depression, took a job at W.K. Kellogg's estate in Battle Creek on the Gull Lake. Probably just, a summer job, because the Depression, he was out of work. And he met the Taylors. Mr. Taylor was recruited from England because he had a good reputation in his line of work, and so W.K. Kellogg brought him to Michigan to manage his summer estate at Gull Lake. And that's how Dad met the Taylors. And the story I like to tell is that the Taylors had 3 children. One was Charles, who was about 2 years older than me, and then the Wallace, who they called Tubby because he was kind of fat as a young kid, was just a little older. And then they had Lois, who was about a year or 2 younger than me. So whenever we had a chance, we'd go visit them, and I'd play with the kids. And if W.K. Kellogg wasn't on the estate, we could have the run of the place. If he was there, we had to mind our P's and Q's. Well, anyway, what happened, Chuck, who was a couple of years older than me, in the second year at Michigan State, when the war started, he enlisted. And he got his wings, and he went to Europe as a bomber pilot, B-17 pilot. And on his 32nd mission, he got shot down over Germany. So my mother knew about Chuck, and here I am training in the same airplane and scheduled to go to Europe. We were supposed to go to England and then fly missions over Germany. But my mother's prayers came in, I guess. What had been going on in the past, they would get a new airplane, the crew would get on, they'd fly it to England. And we were about to do that, and then we got notified that the orders were changed. And what happened was, instead of flying over as a crew, they sent the guys over in a commercial, or a transport plane as replacements for guys coming back. And I happened to be in the other half of the group that was sent to California to train on not California, it was New Mexico, to fly B-29s, which was the latest and the greatest, airplane. And it was so superior because it had 20mm cannons as well as 50 caliber machine guns, and the guys coming back, they'd flown missions over there, so the Japanese Zeros would do maneuvers, aerobatics, they wouldn't come in because those guns were so deadly. They had what they call a Norton gun sight, and all you had to do was put the plane in the sight, and the sight compensated for elevation and lead.
Yeah.
Boy, they were deadly.
When you were at Williams, were you flying B-17s?
I wasn't flying then because, like I say, I washed out just a couple of weeks before I graduated, so I was flying as a gunner.
So when did you get back into flying then?
Well, right after, as soon as I went through gunnery school and assigned to a crew, and it was a B-29, and we were ready to go to the Far East.
So were you a gunner on the B-29?
Waist gunner on the side.
Okay.
And of course, I got to fly the airplane once in a while. They were on a long cross country or something because I knew how to fly.
You had enough training that you.
Yeah. And anyway, so like I say, we were on a long navigation flight, and we came in, and the tower gave us, parking instructions that said all aircraft are grounded indefinitely. What in the hell's going on? See, we couldn't imagine. We've been just training like crazy. Well, a couple of days later, we got the word they dropped the A-bomb. That saved my butt.
So you were in New Mexico when all that news came?
Yep.
Do you remember where in New Mexico? What air base?
Roswell.
Roswell? So you were pretty close to where all that testing for the A-bomb was?
Yeah, that's right.
Did anybody did you see anything or hear anything when you were on the ground?
We had no idea. It was so secret.
Yeah.
But that saved my butt and saved a lot of people.
So you spent a lot of the war then in air bases over in the
just
States training.
Yeah, flying, and my gosh, I got all that free training.
And what different aircraft did you train on besides the B-29?
Well, that would be the last one. Yeah, that was the latest and the greatest.
Mm-hmm. And
that's the one that dropped the A-bombs.
When you were a gunnery, what are some types of things that you were trained to do?
They would fly.
flight?
They would have fighter planes drag a target behind you, shoot at the target, and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you weren't assigned as a crew then? When you were in New Mexico, you were all part of a crew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because your crew got split up, you said earlier, and half of them went over. Then you came to New Mexico.
Yeah, and like I say, that saved because we were 2 weeks from deploying to the Far East, and when the war ended because we dropped the A-bomb.
Do you remember what your crew was named? They're usually named after their pilot or a couple of the pilots, or did you have a crew name?
I don't recall that. I want to say, it seems like his name was Huff. George Teets was another crew member.
George Keats?
Yeah, Teets. I can't think of the other guys anymore. I
Well,
probably have it in my record somewhere.
Yeah, that's fine. So, what rank were you at that time?
Sergeant. Yeah.
Sergeant? And what was your MOS? Your occupational specialty? Was that as a gunner?
Gunner,
A
yeah.
gunner?
Mm-hmm.
And so, was there any when did you find, what happened when you found out that the atomic bomb was dropped?
Well, there was a lot of elation, I saw, and we knew we'd be getting out soon. Of course, I had to wait because they let the guys that had they let them out by points. The more time they had in the service, plus they got an extra point for overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have any of that, so I had to waste my time from then on for a while.
Yeah. Did you remain in New Mexico at Roswell after the war then, until
yeah.
they let you out?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times I've heard of people, they were sent to another base helping manage different things.
Exactly.
But you were pretty much in Roswell then?
Yeah,
At Basewell.
Had to wait my turn to get out. They had a point system. And
Mm-hmm.
the guys that overseas time got double points, so they got out first, which they should have.
Did you become really good friends of anybody on your crew?
Oh, sure. We hung out with guys and when you had time off.
Were there any other Michigan guys?
Nope, I don't think so. They're from a lot of them a couple of guys from Texas, I recall, and the East Coast. They're all from all over.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of interesting because, that gave you a chance to meet different people from different backgrounds.
Did you have any other incidents besides the pilot trainer that got himself too deep into mud?
I was very fortunate on the B-29s. That like I say, I was crewing on that, and we were taking off, and engine caught fire, and they couldn't feather that prop because the hydraulic system was shot. So they had this big 4-bladed prop they're dragging. And I'll have to say the pilot did a masterful job because we were surrounded by mountains. That was right out here. And there was kind of a dip in the mountains, and he managed to get enough altitude to get between those peaks and drag it around and then slowly line up to the runway and brought it in. And of course he came in hot as hell because of all that drag. As soon as he hit the runway, he got on the brakes, and the damn airplane went clear down the runway and off and stopped just short of the fence. And of course, the brakes got so hot they set the hydraulic fluid on fire.
Yeah.
So we had an aircraft fire. So everybody bailed out, and thank God the fire trucks were right behind us.
Yeah. Was that on B-29?
Yeah.
How large was your crew on the B-29?
I think it was 10 men.
10 men?
Yeah. Pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, and the rest are all, maybe waist gunner either side, tail gunner, and the ball turret gunner.
Was your ball turret gunner, was he a small
little guy? Yeah.
They usually were
Yeah.
pretty small to get in there. So could you tell me a little bit about how you I got a note about Colorado. Is there a story about Colorado?
Weren't you based there?
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because, see, they had all this flight time. So as soon as when I got to Denver, Lori Air Force Base? Lori.
Yeah.
But, yeah. As soon as I got leave to get off the base, I headed out to the commercial airport.
Was this before New Mexico or after New Mexico?
Oh, that'd be after, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I got out there, and the reason I went out was trying to locate an instructor because I want to work on my private license. And of course, all the men were in the service, so I lined up a female instructor. And so when I left the airport, I was hitchhiking out to the highway, and the mailman came. He delivered mail with a U.S. postal truck, and he stopped and he said, "I'm not supposed to pick up hitchhikers, but," he said, "since we both work for the same outfit, I guess it's okay." So that's what happened. And on the way back to the base, he invited me to dinner next Sunday at his house, and I said, "Well, I told my buddy I was going to do something with him." He said, "Bring him along." So the two of us probably rented a car and drove out to the Hetts. It was their last name was Het, and guess what? He had two daughters. Unfortunately for my buddy, the older daughter was going with a pilot from the base nearby, but Anne Het, the younger girl, was available for me. So not only did we have a nice dinner, we had somebody to show us around the Denver area. I really enjoyed that because she knew all the places to go, the sightseeing places. So they were a wonderful family. They were a Catholic family, and that gave me something to do on weekends.
How long were you in Colorado?
I want to say 6 months, maybe. I don't know exactly anymore.
Did you continue to fly there then?
Yeah, whenever I could, I'd get off on a weekend. I'd go out and work on my ratings.
So did you ever fly commercial aircraft?
I got a commercial license, but I never really used it for that purpose. It was just to get I was then working on my instrument rating, and pretty soon I had all my ratings. I could have been, I thought about going to work for the airlines, but some other things came up and I didn't. What happened was that I had some plans about what I was going to do, but a buddy of mine, like I say, I tell you, had an interview out at the airport at Detroit, Willow Run, and he wanted me to go along to help him drive. So while he was there, I went over and interviewed with Northwest, and they offered me a job. So when I got back, I called the placement office at the Western and told them that they were hiring. And 3 of my classmates ended up going to work there too. And one of them ended up marrying my Georgianne. And anyway, that's how that all happened.
Yeah. So when you were you discharged out of New Mexico then?
Yeah.
Out of Roswell, and out of there, did you went to Colorado from New Mexico then? After the service?
Yeah.
You never went back to Kalamazoo?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you did?
Sure. When I got discharged, that's where I went.
Did you milk any cattle when you were back there?
Probably.
Was your dad still running the dairy?
Yeah. Like I told you, he was a 3rd generation dairy farmer. I didn't want any part of that. That's too much hard work.
7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Right.
You didn't have any brothers or sisters that were there?
Yeah, I had a sister. When I went in the service, she was 3 years old. It was a late birth, unexpected kind of surprise. And when I got back, she was 6. And I always remember, she said, "You ruined my life," because she wasn't an only child anymore.
But you were older, I'm sure you didn't ruin it that
Yeah.
much because of the age difference, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, she had, and I had my mother's sister, younger sister, had a job with Upjohn Company in Kalamazoo. She was, at that time during the war, she was living out on the farm with my
Yeah.
folks. So she had this aunt plus her parents doting over her.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that the service was really good to you.
Yeah.
How did the service help you after the war? Was there
Well,
things that the service helped you with later in life?
The free training to fly, you know, got all of that experience.
Did you fly much on your own
Oh,
afterwards?
yes.
You flew a lot?
Oh, yeah, I had an airplane. As a matter of fact, I had a four-place airplane, and when I was working for the airlines, I was working a flight, and who should be on the flight, get out of the airplane when I was working, was the head of the aviation department of Western Michigan, who I knew well, and another instructor. And they said that one of their instructors, a guy by the name of Amerpole, had taken a job at Bendix in South Bend. They were hiring. So I told my other three buddies there, and we hopped in the airplane that I had and flew down to South Bend. And they had two openings, so they gave it to me and the other single guy, Mitch Hensley. And but Mitch thought about it, and then he wanted to fly. So he turned it down, and they hired the guy that only had one kid. Because of the traveling job, see,
Yeah.
they didn't want to drag a wife and kid around.
Yeah. So that's where you worked for Bendix for quite a few years.
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
in South Bend.
South Bend, and when they finished the training, they offered a contract to go to Japan. And that happened to be when I was getting ready to get married.
Yeah.
So we kind of rushed the marriage because we had the marriage on January 1st, right after everybody was probably hungover as they came.
Yeah.
And because I had to get to Japan.
Well, sounds good. Well, is there anything left about your Army Air Corps experience that you haven't thought of that you might want to mention?
I can't think of it. It's just that it was all so positive. It was so helpful. I learned to fly, but I didn't have to go get shot at.
That was good.
At the
Yeah.
taxpayer's expense.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. That was good. Well, thank you, Bill, for your
Okay,
interview.
well, thank
you
you.
very much.